Hey, this is Brass Check, and we're recording this on Sunday, October 15th. And haven't put anything out on the situation in Israel because we didn't plan on this. And we have a lot of other things on our plate, but I wanted to bring you up to date with useful information. Um, First of all, all war is hell, and the people that pay the price are always civilians, uh, usually women and children. So the whole thing is a disaster. But we need to know how the disaster happened and what its roots are before we make any decisions one way or the other on how we feel about it. So let's take a look at this, and we're going to find out who actually invented Hamas. That's kind of an important question. And we got a little clip here for you to watch, and then we're going to come back and discuss.
The Palestinian militant group Hamas has carried out brutal acts of terror against Israeli civilians, and Israeli and American leaders are always keen to tell us how dangerous and evil Hamas is.
The inhumanity of Hamas.
I have no sympathy for Hamas.
That keep shelling Israel with thousands of rockets and mortar shells.
But what if I told you that Israel helped create Hamas?
Okay. Remember Al-Qaeda? Remember 9/11? Remember who funded the development of Al-Qaeda and organized the whole movement and brought all the crazy Arab fighters together in one place and trained them and armed them? That would have been the CIA in the United States. And then they lost control of them, and that's called blowback. And Israel did the very same thing. They wanted to sort of neutralize Palestinian political unity, so they created a group. But they didn't create it. They supported and allowed to grow a group called Hamas, and they lost control of Hamas. So if anybody calls what's happening in Israel right now Israel's 9/11, they are absolutely correct, right down to the detail. The gangsters that run Israel, that's the government versus the people, by the way. If you go to Israel, the people do not love their government, but the gangsters that run and control the government brought Hamas into being in order to try to game play. And that's just step one of the culpability of the Israeli government here.
Officially, Hamas, which is the acronym for an Arabic phrase meaning Islamic Resistance Movement, was founded in 1987 at the start of the first Palestinian Intifada, or uprising against the Israeli occupation. But its roots were planted much earlier. The Hamas founder Sheikh Ahmed Yassin was a half-blind, disabled Palestinian cleric and member of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Brotherhood had been repressed by the Egyptians in Gaza prior to 1967, but once the Israelis invaded and occupied the Strip, they didn't just turn a blind eye to these Islamists, they encouraged them. See, the Israelis, especially right-wing Israelis, wanted to undermine the power of the dominant Palestinian political force at that time, the nationalist PLO, at the heart of which was the secular Fatah party of Yasser Arafat, their bête noire.
Okay, so we've got game playing. The Egyptians kicked the Muslim Brotherhood out of their country because they were so whacked. And Israel said, hey, come on, start a counterbalance group to the PLO. And the idea is divide and conquer, get the people that you want to control fighting each other, and that makes it way easier to control them. So if this sounds familiar, there's a good reason for that. It's tried and true. All right, so I'm going to be back with another clip. Okay, I think we got this next one queued up. So step one, who created Hamas? Who facilitated its growth? Who tolerated its growth? Who encouraged its growth? The right-wing gangsters that control Israel, the Israeli government. So that's sort of a 9/11, right? Al-Qaeda. How about this? Let's see if I get the right button here.
Egypt's top intelligence officials saying that Israel totally dropped the ball here. they ignored huge warning signs that something big was coming from Hamas in Gaza, and they did nothing to stop it. In other words, Egypt says Israel knew this was coming. They warned Israel. They had multiple conversations about it. They admitted this. Israel has arguably the most sophisticated intelligence service in the world, and yet they purposefully didn't do anything to stop it. Egypt says they knew about it. So if that's true, why would they do that? Why would Israel ignore a potential attack? We'll let you make up your own minds on that. So as the sun sets here on this very hot day here in Egypt, worries that this is about to get a whole lot worse. We'll be watching it very closely. We'll see. Egypt's top intelligence officials saying that Israel totally dropped the ball here.
Okay. So is this starting to look even more like 9/11? Number one, the Israeli government facilitated and encouraged the growth of Hamas in the first place. Now they have their boogeyman. Then when they're warned by their neighbor with whom they have a treaty relationship that something big is, because I'm going to tell you guys, you cannot stage an operation like this without giving off all kinds of signals. They cannot be done. Okay, just forget it. Forget that fantasy. All right. So Egyptian intelligence saw that it was coming. They knocked on the door of Israeli intelligence and said, you know what, guys, looks like something really big is being organized here. And what did the Israeli security state do? Nothing. They let it happen. Okay. So these are facts, right? These are, whatever side you're on or not on, or, whatever emotions you're feeling, the Israeli gangsters, government, right-wing people, encouraged Hamas to form, allowed it to grow, used it as a boogeyman. And then when they got clear warnings from their intelligence counterparts in their neighboring country of Egypt, they ignored it. Okay? So kind of sounds a lot like 9/11, doesn't it? So this is Israel's 9/11. In that, the catastrophe for the people. Don't forget, 3,000 people plus died during 9/11, plus another 3,000 from all the toxins that were released, right? So there you have it. There you have it. This is looking pretty close to 9/11. Now, I have another clip from a most unexpected source who is actually one of the sanest people on this subject. Okay, I got the clip. And first, you're going to hear some guy at the end of a long rant, kind of an ignorant rant. And then our expert, and you're going to be surprised at who it is. And she's one smart lady and getting smarter all the time.
Cybersecurity, they're focused on intelligence, they're focused on air power, they're focused on tech, where they completely just missed the ball. It's like, yeah, they're just going to get some freaking bulldozers and some paragliders and just come in and start slaughtering innocent victims.
Well, that's
they
what
didn't
happened
account for
here
that.
on 911. It was box cutters that brought up.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. But is the biggest question, is this Israel's 9/11?
I think the biggest question, I think it is, but a bigger question is, why didn't all that infrastructure work? Was it hacked? Nobody's saying that.
How do you hack a wall?
Well,
I'm talking about the technological infrastructure.
Yeah, because
It wasn't hacked.
we don't know.
We don't know.
What you're saying is, Adam, and from a security standpoint, I get it. There could be stuff happening inside your country and people are fighting. That does not diminish the security apparatus that is set up.
Right.
There is absolutely no excuse for going, well, we were worried about the voting thing. And then, because, dude, think about it. The Iron Dome and all that stuff, everything is set up basically to perfection. So I know what she said.
And they also said that the victims said that the police and the military didn't arrive for 6 to 8 hours.
After it went down. Yeah. And by the way, I've seen multiple videos of IDF and Israeli intelligence people saying there's 0% chance that they didn't know this. This is not me saying it. These are people on the ground live in front of a camera saying 0 chance that with our security, we had no idea this is coming. So that's the thing.
What does that mean?
Well, that's I'm telling
they
you what
allowed it to happen?
Adam, listen, Pearl Harbor gave us justification to get into World War II. 9/11 gave us justification to start the illegal war in the Middle East and expand the military industrial complex. It's like I don't know. Who knows? Because it's like, how
Who
many
knows?
intelligence failures are going to happen?
No,
How
but
many?
it's obvious that they want every place under military lockdown. They want all free societies to go that way.
So they made the point, which you won't see on CNN or read in the New York Times. Israel supposedly has one of the most, elaborate, well-developed surveillance security system in the world by far. I mean, I think they make the Chinese look a little weak on that front. All right. So more evidence that this was allowed to happen. How could they have missed it? How can you miss a guy stealing a bulldozer, ramming into a wall? Why weren't there cops or soldiers or whatever on that scene in a minute? I mean, imagine, just think your own town. Some guy steals a bulldozer and starts ramming a security installation. And you don't have somebody there shooting him? Like in 5 minutes? Give him 10 maybe. But listen to what Roseanne reported and what this other fellow points out, that there are professionals like security officers, police officers, military people who say in the country itself, who are part of the team of Team Israel government. And they're saying zero chance that this wasn't telegraphed from a mile away. Zero chance. And then Roseanne Barr points out that there are settlers and other victims and so on that said this thing went down and it took 6 hours for the cops to arrive and for the soldiers to arrive. Really? How does that work? 6 hours? Okay, so the gangsters who run Israel fostered Hamas and supported it, encouraged it. Egypt, the Egyptian intelligence service, contacted the Israeli intelligence service security state, 24/7, 365 surveillance state, and said, hey, something's rumbling and it looks huge. And is the Israeli security state and all its professionals ignored it. Now, even at the point of operation where bulldozers, I mean, you don't knock a wall down with a bulldozer on the first try. The first second a bulldozer started heading towards one of the walls, that should have been an alarm. The minute it hit one of the walls the first time, that should have been an alarm. 6 hours before the security state jumped into action. So this thing was so obviously allowed, permitted, and the question is why? And we're going to get the answer to that in a second. Okay, so we've got, I know I repeat myself because I just want to make sure the points are clear. And also I'm going from clip to clip and I don't have an editor, so this is a mess, but it's the best analysis you're going to find anywhere. So, so we've seen that the Israeli gangster state, right-wing lunatics fostered Hamas. Egypt warned them, and the security forces stood down. That's the only answer. Right? All right. So let's try to get some insight into the Middle East here and what we're up against. And I say we because we're going to pay the bill. Guaranteed.
Truth of the matter is that the Middle East exists in a complicated web of cooperation and competition. It is a place teeming with differences and disputes, even between supposedly allies. Moreover, due to hydrocarbon riches, local governments have little need for public income streams like taxation to upkeep budgetary expenditures. As a result, governments in the Middle East are detached from the societies they represent. Accordingly, political power in the Middle East is highly centralized and sometimes even personalized. However, when political turmoil erupts in the region, which it does every so often, the personalized deals are cancelled just as quickly as they were approved. For added context, only 2% of young Saudis support normalizing relations with Israel, according to the Arab Youth Survey conducted in 2023. As one might expect, reaching a peace deal hasn't been easy under these circumstances. Political needs shift as rapidly as the wind changes direction. The enemies of today could be the friends of tomorrow. Even so, to reach a deal, Washington has had to filter through the overlapping strategic interests that bring Saudi Arabia and Israel together. Iran sits at the heart of this calculus. Both the Israelis and Saudis feel existentially threatened by it. Accordingly, two separate bilateral defense pacts with the United States have been floated as considerations for Saudi-Israeli normalization. These treaties would resemble the military pacts with Japan and South Korea. Two political parties, in particular, hold disproportional leverage: the religious Zionist Party and the Jewish Power Party. These two,
i.e. the right-wing lunatics,
control the most influential ministries of the country. Itamar Ben-Gvir acts as the Minister of National Security.
Bingo! Have you heard this on CNN, New York Times, Redacted, or anywhere else? The guy that controls national security in Israel is a right-wing lunatic that wants no peace ever with the Palestinians and would like to murder them all. Okay? You heard it here first.
While Bezalel Smotrich is the Minister of Finance and de facto Minister of Defense.
And then the guy that runs the checkbook and runs the Defense Department, also a right-wing lunatic who wants to kill every Palestinian. So what's the easiest way, if you wanted to eliminate every Palestinian, at least in Gaza, which is really valuable real estate, by the way, think about the burning of Maui. But that's just, that Gaza's land, it may be a hellhole for the people that are forced to live there under the conditions they have to live there, but that is some prime real estate. So how do you, if you're a right-wing murderous thug and you want to eliminate as many Palestinians as you can, as fast as you can, and get away with it, what do you do? What do you do? You turn a blind eye as these guys, organize their suicide missions, is what they are. They steal bulldozers and bang into walls. You don't even bother to take the donut out of your mouth, right? They're flying. How hard is it to shoot somebody in a paraglider? What do they have? Bulletproof stealth paragliders? I mean, a kid with a .22 could have taken those guys out. And they were allowed to just run wild. So, which they did with predictable effect. And now what? Well, now it's a horror. These Hamas people are horrible. Therefore, we're going to bomb the hell out of Gaza. Yeah. So let's get a perspective on that. Okay, so coming up next is the son of an Israeli general, and his family is actually one of the founding fathers, founding families of the Israeli state. He is sympathetic in general to the Palestinian situation, and let's hear his perspective on this.
I don't think I'm saying anything that anybody would disagree with when I say that it breaks your heart when a person gets killed. Everybody has a mother and a father. It's horrifying. It's horrifying. Of course it's horrifying when somebody gets killed. But what they do is they take it out of context. You cannot take this out of context. What we saw Palestinian fighters doing, and again, we don't know the full picture because there is no reliable news source yet that I've seen anyway, that gives the entire picture. How many were taken, how many were killed, how many were injured, under what circumstances, and so on.
It does look like the decapitated babies is unfounded, by the way.
Oh, it's unfounded. Yeah, it's unfounded. And babies in chicken coops and cages are unfounded. But I mean, the thing, and let's say, what do you think happens when a 1-ton bomb is dropped on a building? You think babies aren't decapitated? You think people aren't suffocated in the gases that come out and the smoke?
The white phosphorus.
And the white phosphorus and the buildings that fall on people, that people get trapped and parts of their body gets, it goes on and on and on, the horror. You know what I mean? You want to get to the details of the horror? Fine, let's get into the details of the horror. Let me describe to you what happens when you drop a 1-ton bomb in a neighborhood, in a residential neighborhood. How many children get, so that's not the issue. We need to see this in a political context. Now, military operations, actions have to lead to a political outcome. That's the point of what that's their objective.
Okay. The thing I really wanted to focus on there is, okay, so, and again, I'm going to repeat myself because we got to get this clear. The Israeli gangster state fomented, encouraged, enabled, allowed the development of Hamas. They did it for their own nefarious purposes. They wanted to shatter Palestinian unity, so they raised up this other group, just like CIA raised up Al-Qaeda to fight the Russians. Right before this thing happened, serious intelligence people from a neighboring country, Egypt, warned something is brewing and it looks huge. The great security state of Israel ignored it. Then while the thing was going down, nobody could find a cop. Again, the ludicrousness of it. Imagine in your town, again, I'm repeating myself, but if somebody stole one bulldozer in your town and started ramming a tree even, how long would it take to have every state trooper, every sheriff, every local cop, EMT, fire department, thousands of these guys would be surrounding this bulldozer thief? But nobody did anything. And if the report is true, 6 hours before there was a military response. And again, I got to say this: someone comes flying in over my house on a hang glider. Good, because he's going to land dead. I mean, this is not a hard thing to combat. All right, now we see that the right-wing lunatics that do not want peace with the Palestinians, they want the Palestinians eliminated by any means necessary, just happen to control the security apparatus and the Defense Department. Wow, what a surprise. Now, this fellow, who's from the original founding families of Israel, his father was one of the original generals, says, yeah, there's going to be mayhem, but how about the mayhem of dropping a 1-ton bomb on an apartment building? Right? These are civilians too. When you're at war, you're supposed to be, warriors fighting warriors, and that it never works that way. 80% of all fatalities and injuries are civilians, and usually the most vulnerable, people that can't move easily, elderly people, women with children, they're the ones that bear the brunt of this. So somehow it's okay for the Israeli government to drop bombs on neighborhoods, right? So he makes this point, and I think it's very well taken. So if somebody in Israel, if a group in Israel wanted to create a pretext for eliminating with maximum force as many Palestinians as they possibly could and level Gaza, just level it and maybe take it over. Because again, valuable real estate, really valuable real estate. The best thing that you would do is you would let Hamas organize this, improvised suicide mission. You would turn a blind eye. You wouldn't even listen to the your neighbors who warned you it was coming. And then when it went down, you would just sit back and you would let them do their thing for several hours, allow atrocities to be created, which are, war is an atrocity. All war is an atrocity by definition, right? So you allowed that to happen. Atrocities, murders, other things, bad things happened. You broadcast that to the world, and now you're basically creating cover for yourself to now bomb the hell out of the civilians and destroy the entire infrastructure of Gaza, and maybe move into Gaza and annex it. I think that's probably what they want to do. But it may not be that easy. And let's take a look at another video. Former Israeli Prime Minister, and just like I said, this thing that happened, terrible thing that happened, is going to be used as cover to annihilate the infrastructure of Gaza. Gaza, like they're not going after Hamas. They're lobbing bombs and destroying the infrastructure, the already challenged infrastructure of Gaza. And here is the official Israeli justification. And when I say Israeli, I'm talking about the right-wing gangsters that run the country. Believe me, there are many Israelis in Israel that think these guys are criminals and would like to see them in jail, just like we'd like to see our various people in jail. So anyway, here's one of the gangsters explaining why it's okay to bomb civilians in retaliation for a military operation.
Absolutely not. When Great Britain was fighting the Nazis during World War II, no one asked what's going on in Dresden. It was the Nazis targeting London, and you targeted Dresden. So
Listen,
shame on you if you go on with that false narrative.
We're not talking about that, and in hindsight, many people have listen. And in hindsight, many people have readdressed that kind of carpet bombing.
Babies. Oh, I see. Now you're Mr. Clean. Shame on you.
Absolutely not. And I'm not. Listen, Mr. Bennett, I am not in the military. I am a journalist asking you questions. Are you going to let me ask you a question, or you continue shouting at me? We've already distinguished between Hamas and the Palestinians. I'm asking you very directly. What
do you want to ask?
Is going to be done to make sure that those innocent people don't get killed as innocent Jewish people were killed on Saturday?
Well, we're going to target Hamas, and we're telling Hamas that if you use anyone as your human shield and you're going to shoot at us using human shields, that it's their responsibility. Listen, mister, if someone is shooting at you...
Okay. He's basically talking to his base. Right? He just said that Dresden, which I think if you don't know the history of Dresden, Google it and Wikipedia it and everything. A city filled with civilians was firebombed, and horrific, absolutely horrific. And a lot of people are now, in retrospect, are questioning whether that carpet bombing of civilians during warfare is moral, right? Is ethical. Was it even a military necessity? Well, whether it was or not, they burned a beautiful city to the ground and killed a lot of men, women, and children in the process. And here's this guy representing the right-wing thugs who run Israel saying, yeah, it was great. You did it. We're going to do it too. Then he goes, oh, but we're only going to go after Hamas. No, they're going to bomb everything they can bomb. Because I think they're going after the prize, which is to destroy Gaza and then occupy it. And say, hey, this is a dangerous place and we've got to own it. And next thing you know, they're going to be owning Gaza. All right, let's see. We got one other clip, and this puts this in even greater perspective. Okay, so militarily, what's going to happen here? Well, these guys answer the question like as well as anybody. So let's go to them. And again, this has to come from a comedian's channel because we can't get it from the New York Times or CNN or Fox or any of those jackasses. But here's some guys that actually know what they're talking about.
They have a city underneath Gaza, right? Subterranean tunnels that go into Egypt, that go under, Israel. Storming Gaza will not be easy. That's why Israel has called up another 360,000 reservists on top of their 200,000 strong army.
Yeah.
On top of that, if they go into Gaza, Hezbollah, right, Shia,
there we go,
from southern Lebanon, has promised that they will then, open a two-front war. That is why Israel is calling up 300,000 reservists, right? They can send 200 because Hamas only has 30, 40,000 fighters on a good day, right? And only 2,000 real hardcore, right? But say 30,000 people who can pick up guns. But they're going to be defending subterranean tunnels, right, underneath Gaza. Yeah. It's going to be the nastiest underground urban guerrilla warfare. Israel will suffer.
Israel does not have the...
All right, so you see what's being set up here? right? They're at some point they're going to declare it's a necessity to just bomb the whole thing back to the Stone Age, okay? Because it's going to be a slaughterhouse for any combat troops that go in there. Not because Hamas has got the greatest army in the world. You just heard the numbers. It's only about 30,000 guys. Probably only, like you said, only probably 2,000 that can do anything. But 2,000 is a lot, especially when it's on your home territory, especially when it's urban, especially when you're fighting in tunnels. So the gangsters who run Israel are perfectly happy to send their young men and women, because women got to go to war too. I hope all the young ladies in America understand that if we have a draft, you're going, ladies. But that's a different story. But the gangsters that run Israel are very happy to have their young people ground up in a meat grinder in in Gaza. Why? Because it justifies the total annihilation of the entire infrastructure there, which is a prelude to taking over Gaza. And again, prime real estate. It's right on the Mediterranean. It doesn't get any better. All right, so let's get a reality check here. Further reality
stomach for that. I'm not an expert on the situation, but I know more than most, and I've been paying attention to this quite some time. Anytime they've tried to go into Gaza on a ground invasion, they'll get their asses handed to them. And they're not ready for that type of warfare. And I don't care how much they've been trained by the Americans or whatnot. The people of Gaza, Hamas, and the other factions are ready for this. Israel does what they do best. They mow the lawn. They bomb, you know what I'm saying? That's what they do. They're not going to be ready for this if they, in fact, try to do this. But we've just mentioned that Hezbollah will get involved. This is at the...
All right, so they can't run a credible ground operation against the fighters in Gaza, which is he's pointing out. I don't think that's a hard thing to comprehend. So they're going to resort to bombing. It's just like Vietnam, right? We can't fight on the ground. So we'll just bomb. He's calling it. All right. So there's more. Yet there's more.
They're climbing over the wall to come and fight Israel.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So the host got the facts a little wrong. Luckily, they have an expert that's setting them straight on geography. But here's he's talking about the main point here. It's not just Hamas in Gaza. There's a lot of people angry at Israel. And a lot of them are armed. And here's the other big issue, which nobody's talked about. There is a superabundance of population, and especially young men, young unemployed men, young unemployed angry men, young unemployed militarily trained men in the Middle East. There's no shortage of them. And looks like some of them are deciding to join the fight. They're not waiting for someone to command them to do it. They're grabbing guns and coming. So it's not just the Hamas people they got to deal with. They got to deal with people from Lebanon. They got to deal with people from Jordan. I'm sure everybody with a grudge, and that is a lot of people in the Middle East. It's a lovely place in a lot of ways, a lot of beautiful people, but you've never seen grudges, blood grudges like that they got there. So anyway, let's go on.
That is the northern, if that's Lebanon, that is the northern Israel border, right? It does not border on the Gaza, but they're coming to come to the aid. That's the idea. In Jordan, they also overrun the border to do the same thing, right? You have these moderate governments that are cowed by the U.S. and a lot of these Arab countries like Jordan, like Lebanon. But the people, the Arab street, they have been incited in a way they haven't been incited in years. There are Iraqis, right, coming, people from all over the Middle East and probably beyond.
All right, let's put this. Remember when the Russians, the Soviets invaded Afghanistan. It wasn't just Afghani fighters fighting back. It was Arabs from all over, right? And again, young men without jobs, you know, it's a job. It's a job. And it's a job with a mission. Everybody wants to have a mission. And so, of course, the CIA encouraged that, and we created this sort of pan-Muslim, pan-Islamic fighting force. Guys from everywhere were showing up in Afghanistan, ready to fight the Soviets. You don't think that can happen on the other side, you know, with everybody pouring into Israel? I mean, this could get really, really hairy. And we've already seen that the great Israeli military and the great Israeli military state and all the billions and billions of dollars we've sent to them, they can't even deal with bulldozers and guys in hang gliders. So what happens when random guys are showing up in small bands, armed and ready to fight? It's not going to be good. So, all right, let's see what else this fellow has to say.
The Chechen jihadists that used to be part of ISIS, that are a part of Zelensky regime forces, right?
Oh, right.
Right. They have said they've turned on Zelensky over this.
Yeah.
Because he's in full-throated support of Israel, and they're angry. So they're like, we're out of here. We'll go fight for the Palestinians.
All right, did you get that? I don't know if you know anything about Chechnya, but you do not want to get into a fight with the Chechnya, especially on their territory. And they bloodied the Soviets and the Russians pretty well, and then they became mercenaries on behalf of the Ukrainians, because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And now they're sick of this clown in Ukraine, and they got to go somewhere. They got to do something. Some of these guys may be heading to Israel. These guys are good fighters, so that'll be interesting.
Right. This could blow up on Israel, and if it does, Hamas will be remembered as their brinkmanship, you know, bringing this all about. And there's another thing about the timing of all of this. Right now, the U.S. has exhausted their supply, all of NATO's supply, all of NATO's allies' supply of artillery shells, air defense missiles, interceptors, all of these other things. In fact, they took 300,000 artillery shells that they had stored in Israel for Israel and the U.S.'s emergency use for a situation just like this. They pulled them out last year and gave them all to the regime in Kiev, right?
Okay, you got that. This is the big payday for who? For the defense industry. You know, we had all this inventory, you know, and if your clients have all the inventory in the world, they don't need to buy any new stuff. So they not only ran through all of our munitions and all of NATO's munitions and equipment, sounds like they pulled a lot of stuff out of Israel and sent it to the Ukraine. So I'm not recommending to anybody to take advantage of this, but if you buy defense stocks, you are going to make money, because these guys just got a $1 trillion order for new arms and equipment. And don't think that they're not up to it like this. So you see how much there is to this. It's not just some atrocities that took place against civilians. It's a big chess game, and you're getting to see the pieces. I don't know anybody else. And now, if you go and look at all these, you watch hundreds of videos and look at all these videos and have a background and assemble it all, it starts to make sense. Who's doing that for you? I don't know.
And they have a huge shortage of air defense missiles, man pads, you know, all kinds of armaments. And right now, Israel, what's the first thing they're yelling for? Air defense missiles and artillery shells. Hamas knows there's a huge shortage of this. And Israel has enough military capacity to take Hamas. Yeah, it'll be costly, it'll be slow, grinding, but do they have enough to take on Hezbollah at the same time when the U.S. can't supply a lot of the armaments that Israel will need to fight Hezbollah? This is
all right. So I don't know the answer to that question either, but obviously there's a much bigger game going on here. But you've got the pieces. You got the pieces, and you can make up your own mind. Obviously, this thing is a tragedy on an epic scale. but it is not a comic book, and it's not a simple black and white situation. So that's our report on this. I hope you found it useful, and thank you.
Brass Check TV, free to you, not free to us. We've got a server bill, we've got an email software bill, we've got a tech helper bill, and that happens every month. So to everybody that is supporting us financially, that's paying for their subscription in one way or another, we really appreciate it. If you're not, consider doing so. Everybody's got money for the newspaper and the cable bill and all that. Do you have money for media that's actually serving you? That's really the issue here. And when you help us, it allows us to get this information out to the world. So thanks to all our supporters, and if you're not a supporter already, please consider becoming one.